and welcome to EllieMD's live educational series. And this time we're extra live. I love doing these where we get to be in person. We are coming live from Cancun together at a leader retreat, a retreat that was set up by a team. So we're here with Alexa. We're so glad you're joining us today at EllieMD. We're redefining telehealth by creating a space for meaningful conversations, science-driven insights, and guided support that empowers you to take charge of your health and longevity. Tonight's episode live is especially exciting as we're pairing this conversation with the release of Elite Spray. And if you don't know what that is, you better go check it out at elliemd.com. Our newest offering designed to support desire, connection, and physical readiness. We're thrilled to share this conversation with Alexa Bowditch, a relationship coach and sexual health educator with over 9 years of experience supporting women and couples around desire, intimacy, and embodied confidence. Alexa is the founder of Sex and Love Co. and host of That Sex Chick podcast. Her work bridges education, nervous system awareness, and real life application, helping people understand desire as responsive, adaptable, and deeply connected to stress, safety, and connection. Alexa, we're so glad you're here with us.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. And I get to be right next to you.
Yeah, I know.
You get to have this conversation live in person, and
Yeah.
it's super exciting. But so you have to tell us, our audience,
Mm.
how did you become a sex coach and how did you get into this?
Yeah, I'm from deep South Louisiana, like a really small town just underneath New Orleans, and my family's been there for over 300 years. And I am the one that flew the coop. I'm the one that had to get out of there. But I love it. I love where I'm from, but I think that my Southern Louisiana mom wishes I did anything else. Like, could you go into any other subject other than sex? But relationships were always fascinating to me. I didn't understand why they fell apart. I didn't understand why parents didn't stay together. I didn't understand, the conversations that were about bodies and sexuality and hormones and growing up, and all of that seemed really shrouded in shame. I went to Catholic school, and so I just really was confused by how are we supposed to get this right? And I became a student of it, and also went through my own series of relationships when I was really young, where I just kept those learning relationships where it's like, oh, don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. And I have an amazing relationship with my mom. But I did grow up thinking, just don't do it like she did, because she'd been married several times. And what I find so really beautiful about my mom's story is that she never gave up on love, and actually met my now stepdad just before she turned 50. And that's the longest relationship of her life. She's about to be 70. And so I'm really super inspired by how it's all shaken out over time. But of course, when I was really young, it was just like, how do I do this right? So I started studying it. I, like, in my own world, like, found personal development, and then felt like sexual health and wellness and education and sexual exploration was missing from a lot of personal development type events and books and audios. And so I just started leaning into it. And then I'm going to say some interesting things now. So how do I get into this? I started getting really curious about the psychology of sex and what makes people tick. So I was really curious about bondage, dominance, discipline, submission, sadism, masochism. Why are these things? I got really curious about why do people like these things, and how do kinks play out in relationship? And then I got curious about why libido dies, and why connection just fizzles, and like, what is going on here? And so I just became a student of the whole thing.
Oh my gosh.
And I just had my own, like, in my 20s, going to New York City and experiencing all the events and different parties, and like just taking it all in. And now I'm in a season of life where I'm married, and I have an amazing relationship with my husband. I have a little boy, and sex and relationships looks different. And so I've always taken an approach of, I'm a student, and I've gained tools along the way. And when I have someone that I'm working with, I'm like, how can we just get you into your body, into your pleasure and desire in a way that feels really good to you, and you can relax and you can enjoy, and you can continue connecting the way that you want to connect.
Yeah. Well, I think intimacy is a very important part of relationships, and it affects both sides. It's not just the women who lack desire, or it goes both ways. What have you noticed is the central root cause of lack of intimacy within relationships? What ends up happening? Why do people stop becoming intimate?
Yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the season of
Hmm.
life. The reasons why my husband and I were probably like not like ships passing in the night at one stage of our lives versus now is very different. When we first got together, we were both very entrepreneurial and very focused on our work, and it was almost like we were too busy for each other, and we had to force like remember prioritize. And now we have a toddler, and we co-sleep, or I co-sleep, and so when I say I co-sleep, I'm in one bed with the baby and he's in another bed in the house. And so like, how do we make this work? And so I think what winds up happening is people, they stop bringing intentionality into the relationship. And I think some of it is logistical, and if you start with the logistics, like we have to put this time on our calendar to reconnect. I know that that might sound kind of rigid, but we've got to put this time. My husband and I do a morning huddle every week, where we'll talk about some of the logistics. And in the logistics of the week, we plan when our intimacy is likely going to happen. Not when it's for sure, but when it's likely going to happen. Like, oh, you've got a window here, I've got a window here, let's meet together. And typically that looks like us meeting in, so I say we co-sleep. So the intentionality in our relationship, just to use us as an example, is when we decided our relationship was going to be have some separation in it and we weren't going to be sleeping in the same bed, we actually built a private play space for us to go to during the day for us to have adult time. And so we have a 685 square foot apartment above our garage that's just an adult play space. There's a
Do the
bed up
kids
there.
know?
No, our friends know.
It's
Our friends
their,
with kids know. But when you ask that question, it's that
yeah,
level of intentionality. It's looking at your person and
that's
saying,
right.
you matter to me, and being with you matters to me, and being close with you matters to me, because that's what intimacy actually is that feeling of closeness. And then from there, the rest of the sexy stuff will likely happen, especially in long-term relationships, because that whole spontaneous, responsive desire conversation, for people who are in long-term relationships, you're looking at mostly responsive desire. And then when you throw in a little PT 141, you might get some spontaneity, that like passion and excitement back, which feels really exciting. So,
Well, let's talk about the physical component because
yeah.
there's definitely, I think, an emotional intentionality, the logistics, everything that you're talking
Hmm.
about. It's just life
Hmm.
takes on, and you go and you get into your own routines, but there's also a physical component.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the physical component? What ends up happening during different seasons of our lives, right? When we
Yeah.
go into our 30s and as women and men.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone is different, but just in general, if you're talking hormones wise, right? Because this isn't really the conversation of like what happens mentally or in the central nervous system, right? If that's what you're asking.
Well,
Like
hormones,
in
but also
yeah,
blood flow, heart,
all of that.
all of it.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
the
So
physical
yeah, the
component.
physical component. So as you chronologically age, like all of the things that were pumping through our bodies when we were teenagers, going through puberty, like it starts to trail off, or stuff starts to shift in your early perimenopause, and it's like, okay, the body's like, well, we're not trying to make babies as much as we were trying to make babies. And so like bodies start to function a bit differently, hormones start to shift, and then with the hormones shifting, that brings a slew of symptoms as well for a lot of people, and that can knock confidence, that can be really distracting. And so physically as you age, then also things might not work as easily as they used to. And that could be just function, you want to be standing erect when you want to be standing erect, and you want to not when you want to not. And then for women too, with the shift in estrogen and physical wetness as well. So there's so much that winds up happening, but there's also like, we're innovative creatures, and there's so much we can leverage as support and that we can do. Yes, you can work on warming things up, and you can work on emotional safety and all of the like non-physical components to help impact the physical, but sometimes things don't necessarily work the way that you want. And so adding things like lube, adding things like tadalafil, adding different support to your play as you continue to get further along in your life's journey, I look at it as like, why not leverage that support? And I still am surprised. I've been in this work for so long that I get surprised whenever I mention like, just use lube, like my husband and I, we have so many different bottles, and I'm like, just grab one. There's one in every drawer pretty much. Or when I say something like that to a woman, she goes, I don't need that. Like there's some like I've
Mhm.
got to prove it that I can do
Interesting.
it and I don't need that. Other people need that. I don't need that. Like and there's this really interesting, like if I don't perform, because that would be like a woman's version of performing. If I don't perform, then like maybe I'm not enough.
Mm.
And so I think with a lot of the peptide conversation in general, for me anyway, I look at whether it's the peptides or some of these other tools for intimacy as a bridge. I feel like for me, I work really hard in my life, and sometimes my efforts don't necessarily get me exactly where I want to go. And when I add a little bit of the support, then I actually can rest and push a little less and surrender and relax a little bit more.
Is there libido and wetness for women, erections for men? Is it one of those like use it or if you don't use it, you lose it over time? Is it one of those things or no? That's not true. I've heard that myth before.
I mean,
Do you lose it if you don't use it?
I don't think you totally lose it, but I think for someone who has not leaned into that part of who they are in a really long time, it can feel so foreign, it can feel so vulnerable. And I think sometimes people wind up getting attached to who they are without it as some kind of protection mechanism so that they don't have to be vulnerable. And it's really tough. Like I watch people that consistently, drift apart, and the like trying to connect them back together. There's usually so much stuff that's not physical, that's present in between them. And it's just, do you have to like dig all that stuff up under the rug and talk about all of it? Maybe, but maybe not. I think sometimes the physical component to intimacy can help bring that stuff down, like bring those walls down. And so, there's a slew of tools and exercises, and I would love to share some at some point in our conversation to give people like an actual exercise or two that they can leverage to help their bodies remember, who they are as a sexual being, who they
Mhm.
are as someone who is deserving of another's touch. Someone, I think anyone who gets that, like the hand place, whether it's a man or a woman, where you just feel like you can fully go into it and like it feels like someone's just like really caring for you and like you can let your guard down. So
Oh, I love
okay.
that. Before we talk about, because there's just so much to cover here.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think sexuality is a topic that's often deemed as taboo, and we
Mhm.
don't want to talk about it, but it's such a big part of our lives
Mhm.
and how we connect to other people and how we show up. So, let's talk about the nervous system too. I want to
Sure.
cover the physical components before, because a lot of it is emotional and based on connection. So, when it comes to the nervous system and you have like this wound up and you're stressed out and there's cortisol pumping through your
Yeah.
system, how does that affect desire, intimacy, connection, libido?
Yeah. Well, on the physical front, cortisol will steal from your sex drive, will steal from your hormones, because your body's thinking like, I've got to
Fight or
fight or
flight,
flight. So we
right?
can't be, can you say the F word on your, no, right? We can't fight, flight.
Fornicate.
Right. We can't fornicate. We're fighting and we're flighting. We can't, um, so it steals from and keeps, a system really uptight and wound up. And so that's on the physical front. And then the central nervous system, or just your nervous system's ability to relax and feel safe so that you can surrender into pleasure. That's a whole other subject, and that's mostly where I land in my work with people, is like, how do we get you feeling safe to be in your body? Um, and so everyone's got their ways that they can kind of come home, and then but often come home into themselves, whether that's taking some big deep breaths or putting on music or whatever, your thing of like how you get into yourself. But I also think that so many people have so many distractions put in their lives that instead of going into their bodies and creating safety, to have a physical experience. They would much rather take care of that laundry that's over there, or go check that box that's over there, or no, I can't, I have to go do this other thing. So it the nervous system plays a huge role. And then if the nervous system is not in a place where it can relax and it does feel safe, then you're not going to get, so your hormones, whether they're in an optimal place or not, but if the hormones, let's say, are in an optimal place, then you've got the foundation for intimacy, you've got the foundation for turn on or desire, but the nervous system can't relax, it's not going to work. So and then you can force function with something like just Viagra or Cialis or just the tadalafil on its own, but then you're missing the I want this piece, the I want to connect and I feel safe to connect piece.
Desire,
Yeah.
right? The safety. So I love that you use the word surrender, right? You
Mhm.
just kind of surrender and feel safe enough. So for men and women, safety looks different, right?
Yeah.
In many ways, but it's also very similar. So how can men make women in a relationship feel safe, and how can women in a relationship make men feel safe? And also, you have couples who are homosexual couples. Like,
Sure.
what does safety look like in relationships?
Sure.
That's a
So
loaded question.
it is a loaded question, and I'll speak to women because I am one, and I have worked with a lot over the years and still do. But I think one of the ways that I make my husband, I'm just going to speak personally here, I sure that my husband feels safe is that I accept him and I respect him and I hold the line for that. And
Okay, I got goosebumps. Wow. Beautiful.
yeah. And the role that he plays in my life, he is deserving of that, of me. And when I hold the line for that, I surrender and soften much more. And I think the vast majority of women that I come in contact with are so busy, period, but then so busy running their household and then running a family and making sure no balls get dropped, and then also at times taking away from their husband's masculinity because they're trying to do. And a lot of times, in a heterosexual couple, he will try to make an effort or try to do something, but it won't be good enough. And so when a man is criticized enough, he will stop.
He feels rejected.
Yeah, it's like, you know what, I'm just here and I'm ready when you are. And then this is the cascade effect that winds up happening. And then we get to no function, oftentimes, either on either side, because there isn't a safety piece that's there. And so I think for women with creating the safety, and I want to make this a charge for all women, if I could shout it from the rooftops, and some of you might like this and some of you might not, but this might change everything for some of you. And that is, I want more women to hold the line for your intimacy in your coupleship. I wish that more women would be the leaders of love, not just the leaders in their family. Let your husband, if you're in a family and that's the configuration you have, then let him lead your family to the best that works for you, to the best that he can lead your family, and you lead intimacy. You make sure that intimacy is happening, and you hold the line for that, and you create the conditions for that, and you make sure that part is on the calendar, and you make sure that you are having the connection points, because women are built for this, or the feminine creatures are built for this. We're built to receive. We're built, our feminine energy and essence. I get in a room with a bunch of women and they are just so hard. They're like so hard. And then if you just like crack them open a little bit, they're just like want to be held. But so much of their decision making in their lives that they have put in place has created that condition. And a lot of times it winds up creating a man that's just like, I'm not going anywhere. And I guess I can't get close to you. And it's really heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking. And so, I've run programs for a long time called Love Leader, which is women just really, and you know what? I, for a long time, was a breadwinner in my family. And like, I'm on this call with you and I'm like, I'm making a new space for myself with Ellie. And like, I provide for my family. I also was raised by a single military mother who's been married 5 times. And like, so like, And this is the hardest, what I've just described to you is the hardest for me to do in my relationship. And it's the thing that works. When I stand for love and I stand for connection and I stand for intimacy, he shows up back as the man that I have dreamed for him to be. That's the man that I vowed to. And the more that I criticize and I disrespect and I show up as I'll just do it myself and I take everything and I pile and I pile and I pile onto myself, he turns into someone that I can make a case for, I'm disgusted by. And I just think that that's a shame in relationships, you know, I am an 88 baby and I just got the messaging growing up that women can do it all. But we don't want to, if we're really honest with ourselves. I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but like, I don't want to, even though I got that messaging. So then if I want to flip it, the ways that my husband also winds up making it to where I feel really safe, and you can interchange these things with masculine, feminine, is that he actually provides. Now, that doesn't necessarily always mean monetarily, but he holds it down. He's the rock. Earlier today, when I was working off no sleep and I called, and then my little boy was in the background crying, mommy, mommy, and I just started bawling. He was on the other line and he was going, I got this. I got this. You can let go. So he shows up for that side of it, which is, I got you, I'm not going anywhere. And when I am my typical like feminine emotional self, he's strong. And so if I can give that that to you all too, is that at any time, like if you want to talk masculine, feminine polarity, two people who are activated and upset about something at the same time goes nowhere. It just usually gets worse and intimacy gets further away. So for me, I'm breaking down, he holds. If he's and he won't always, because every now and then he shows his emotion and breaks down too. And when he has his own moments, I don't then make it about me. And then I don't break down and have my own. And so then we are both chaos. So I'll hold him in a way that's appropriate for him. That way we maintain our polarity in our relationship, which I'm speaking about it like it's just this easy thing we do. It's challenging more often than not. But those are the ways that safety, it's like I can break down and I can be all of me in front of you, and you're actually going to be with me, present, and pay attention to me, and you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to be my person, and I'm going to be your person. And that's safety. I think that shows like to the nervous system. And so, you know, so I think sometimes people are like, we're just at wit's end. We've got to go to couples therapy. I'm like, I don't know if you need to talk about it anymore. You've probably been thinking about it a lot. Like, I don't know. You know, there's some pieces that are just the nervous system and that are the physical components and that are the togetherness. And sometimes I think people putting something I think that also winds up happening is that people don't touch each other very much. They give a hug, they give a quick kiss, it becomes routine, but they don't like embrace, like fully, truly sync breath to breath, heart to heart, physical embrace outside of, do you want to have sex? Here's my hug, kiss goodbye, the end. And so I think also showcasing just physically, you're safe and I'm here and I've got you is another piece too.
It was beautiful. That really hit home. Because as a single mom, you know, I carry a lot. I work, I'm an executive, I'm trying to balance a lot. And sometimes it's hard to let go. And then you think, why doesn't this person do? Well, you're not allowing them to do because you're taking so much control. So I love that you're calling out the women and you're saying, well, we're playing a role too. You want him to show up in his masculine self, but are you even allowing him to show up? And that's so important for us women. And I know there are men on this call, and we'll talk to you too, but as women, it's so important for us to allow him to do, because when he feels needed, he feels important, he will do more and we can let go more. And that you get that sync. You're in sync now, and the energy flows between. So thank you so much for pointing that out. And I think that's such like a important part of intimacy, because then what ends up happening? Tell us all the problems that end up happening in marriages, because as a couples therapist, I'm sure you've heard it. Well, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he doesn't. well, it's like blame, blame,
Yeah,
blame.
yeah.
Why doesn't he do that? Have you asked? Have
Well,
you?
it's not even just the asking, it's you said it all. It's allowing.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's allowing and it's making space for him to take up space as well and mess up and it be okay and to have do-overs. It's everything that you just said. And I am a firm believer that in any relationship, when they come to me, whether they're having intimacy challenges or they're having really exceptional intimacy, but for some reason they're just bickering all of the time, I pull the woman to the side and I go, you can change all of this. And it feels like, and at first it usually feels like more pressure on me. I go, no, 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 no. You gotta let more things go. And that is a lot of internal work. That is a lot of your own
Mhm.
personal nervous system work. That's like things might fall apart, but I'm okay. I've got me. So I think before, so something I didn't mention, but maybe I did, but like in the intimacy between two people, it's like I have to consistently come back to myself. So in the moments where I want to be hyper vigilant, where I want to domineer, where I want to take control and all of these things, and not in a sexy way, take control. I have to take a step back and back away and go, you're okay. This
Mm.
is not what you saw when you were young. This is different. You've made different choices. You can trust this person. So, like, that's my own personal work to get my nervous system regulated so that I can be someone who's in connection with. And that's responsibility. I think something that I like haven't underscored fully, but I have mentioned it in so many words is taking personal responsibility for
I
your true
love that.
position because that's the only thing that you
Mm.
actually have control over. So, and I was talking with a client even earlier today, and and I had this conversation with him, but it still didn't feel good. I'm like, it didn't feel good to you because you have expectations over what every single word he's supposed to say, and that equals love. And people have to break that down. You're partnered with humans, and humans are flawed. And if you take away all of the criticism and take away all that stuff and work only on the person that you can control, then you actually can be in connection with each other.
Where does appearance and, for example, we go through different phases in our lives. We have babies, we gain weight, we lose weight as men, women,
Yeah.
um, and then we don't feel so good about our bodies and so forth. Like, how does that play a role in intimacy and libido? And also, what can we do about it, right?
Yeah.
If we can't,
Yeah.
we can't lose the weight overnight,
Sure.
but what can we do about
Oh man, I can speak to this for sure, which you have two boys, I
it?
have two
Yeah.
babies too, and for two babies for everybody's. But so, my husband and I, our pregnancy journey was really not super straightforward. We experienced a decent amount of loss. And this
Mm.
is, we're all at different seasons of life. And I know that there's conversations about perimenopause and postmenopause and as we age and all of that. And I'm in the category of like, what happens when our hormones and stuff are out of whack and we're postpartum? And like, I just went through this whole length of time where I'm uncomfortable and not available for intimacy and I'm full of hormones and sex is off the table because of pregnancy. And then the 6-week checkup happens and it's like breastfeeding and all, and like, how do we find our way back? But for my husband and am I like a normal, like 140, 145 is my size before babies. And then we started our pregnancy journey, had a loss, and then like an early loss, and then had to find our way back to intimacy while grief, like, well, that didn't go the way that we thought it was going to. And then I was pregnant again. And that pregnancy, I went into preterm labor and I had him at 22 weeks and he passed away. And
Mm.
so I got all the way to 5.5 months of pregnancy. And then we had to find our way back to each other again and still stay the course and like find our way back into connection and love. And then I was surprisingly pregnant again right behind it. That next pregnancy is my son now, Isaiah. I was essentially pregnant for 15 and a half months with 1 5-week break in between.
Mm.
And that was that was our 7-year itch for our relationship. It was like dark night of the soul that never ended. It was like, this is such an uphill battle to get to intimacy. Through that process, I gained almost 70 pounds all the way to the end of pregnancy. And so I'm now like a 135. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was like, I guess I just got to saddle up and work hard to lose this weight. I know how to do it the right way. I know how to eat well and do this, but I think I'd pushed enough. I think what I needed was ease. I think what I needed was support. And so when you ask that question, and I think of my journey, um, I think leveraging tools for support, like microdosing GLPs changed my life. Leveraging things like PT 141, like my husband and I went on our first trip a couple of weeks ago, and we took PT 141 with us, and we had a blast. And I would love to talk about that, too soon, but and like how to really leverage that in a cool way. But so all that to say, like what my body went through, it will like I feel more comfortable and confident now, but this will never be the same. Like she stretched way out, and like my perfect perky C's are like down to my belly button now. So, and I'm saying that just like in jest, but like I lay on my back and they go this way. And so I'm like that, I'm just in my feels about that. And so I think doing what I know that can support me and my husband too, doing what he knows that supports him and his body, whether that's sleep, getting out in the sun, movement, weightlifting, peptides, close community, having really great friends that you can really truly rely on in community, having purpose. Those are all the things that I think for me, like make me feel confident in myself. So it's not a just my body, because there's no way, unless I pay someone to put these back, like they're sitting in something right now. With some, I can pay to put them back somewhere. But if I don't do that, then this is what I've got. And so having, being truthful and honest with my husband, but at the same time, he's like, I don't care. He's like, oh, just as great as before. He's like, those were pre-baby boobs, and now they're these. And like, I love these. They make, they do something different. So, I have my moments of like, wow, I'm feeling self-conscious, and I recognize the self-consciousness, and then I tell myself I'm safe, and I remind myself that this is my partner's experience too, and that I'm still a human being that's built for pleasure, and I'm going to be in this body for the long haul, and I'm going to be with this man, my intention for the long haul. So this is where I'm at. I can also put some GHKCU in there. Yeah, I'm going to try.
Okay. I love that you touch on that. Well, so let's touch on a little bit of the additional tools. Let's talk about the PT 141, the peptides. Maybe we can educate a little bit on what each one does for couples, men, women. A lot of people want to know, is this just for women? Is it for men? Is it for a certain age group? So let's talk about that. We came out with the Elite spray. However, we do also offer PT 141 by itself. Elite spray has tadalafil, oxytocin, PT 141. Let's break it up and dissect these three ingredients, why we put them together, and tell us like what each one does.
I mean,
into
you
this
did
sequence.
it.
I know I did it, but
You
know
did it,
that I
you were
want
asking
you
me.
to talk about it.
Okay.
Because and touch on what that is.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the mental desire aspect of it, PT 141 covers. Like why is that important? And then we'll do.
Well, I mean, I saw in the in the comments, someone was saying, I love my husband and I have a great life and I have all these things and I just have no desire. So you're missing like the PT 141 can help bridge that gap. Okay, I can't maintain an erection. So first, maintaining erection is one thing. No amount of like elate spray or any of these ingredients are going to make you like someone that you loathe. So
So fix that first.
yeah. So there's some stuff that you've got to be really real with yourself. So when we're talking about these compounds and referencing relationship and safety is like, look, my husband does things every so often where I'm like, he like changed lanes too fast. And I was like, oh no, I'm not safe. Like, does that mean I'm not safe with my husband? No, I trust him definitely. Like I'm making a family with him. Like, yes, I trust him. And does he occasionally do some things that trigger old stuff from my past? And like in my, yes, but generally speaking, he is my safe place and he is my rock. And so we're not always going to feel exactly deeply connected. And so I'm just pointing out like that's healthy. Now, someone that is like in active addiction or is physically abusive or is to a certain degree emotionally abusive, now that's very, very nuanced. But there's types of relationship configurations that I wouldn't recommend this for. So just this, like my
Well said.
my
Yeah.
disclaimer, like this is your person. Or you even just want to take it and like go out and see how you feel just on a night on the town, and maybe you're single, like, so I also see that there's multiple ways to leverage something like PT 141, especially on its own. And I'm talking to the women that like feel like their turn on is just like, do you feel like like your turn on is like a part of your identity in a way, like when it's gone, a part of you is missing, or when it's present, a part of you is back, and like it's like,
Yeah.
ooh, there she is. Like I felt like she was gone. I felt like I was going through the motions for a while postpartum, and then I started to lose some weight and started to like fit in my clothes again, and my hormones started balancing. I did start HRT, and then I was like, oh, there she is.
I know that's such a big part about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There she is. So I think PT 141 can give, especially a woman, I'm not sure because I'm not a man, but I think it can give a woman just like a, there she is. And so I see many ways to leverage PT 141. So the individual compounds, like the tadalafil is going to help with vasodilation and actual function, sexual function. So it's going to help with blood flow. It will help you get wet. Potentially help you get wet. It will help you potentially get and maintain an erection. So it will help you with the actual function. The oxytocin in there is,
And just to reference, women, our tissue, we have a lot of
Yes.
it inside of us. It takes
Yes.
a little bit longer to fill that up with blood
Yes.
and disperse the blood. So
Yes.
unlike men where it's, vasocongested in one area.
and you can see it.
And you can see it
And
with
can
women,
see
you
it.
can't.
Oh,
So
look, it's working.
It takes a little bit longer
Yeah.
to see the effects and feel it. So the tadalafil really helps with that.
Yeah.
But
And I think can help like for people who might feel some pain and discomfort, definitely leverage lube or coconut oil, something to help with the friction. And you can choose. There's all kinds of different, you can have silicone base, you can have water base, you can have oil base, you can have hybrid. There's so many options. Like find one that is the viscosity that you like, that you can like get really behind, that makes you feel really good, takes the pressure off of the performance piece.
do you
But
have a
then
brand that you like?
I do
that you
personally.
Okay. What do you
Yeah, I love Uberlube.
Uberlube.
I love Uberlube. It's got a sexy bottle, looks good on the nightstand. So, and I got a lot. Sliquid's okay, Sutil is okay, but Uberlube's is our fave.
Okay.
But just like going into the kitchen and getting the jar of coconut oil is fine. Like it does a trick. It's just stains, so that's a thing. So the tadalafil will help with the function and the vasodilation and the blood flow. And so for women, it would be like the blood is rushing there, it's swelling, and all of those things, lead to ready for sex. Well, I guess we could say oxytocin. Can we move to oxytocin or PT 141?
Well, let's go to oxytocin. We covered PT.
Okay, maybe we did it.
Yeah,
So the
good diet.
oxytocin. Okay, so the oxytocin is,
Tell us what it is.
okay, it's your love drug. It's love drug. It is the bonding hormone. And like, now in the season that I'm in life, I hear oxytocin and I think of my little boy, which is not that sexy, but sex made him. And so, it's that bonding, like, I love you, I feel safe with you, I feel connected with you, I want to care for you, I want to deliver for you, I want to be in this with you. That's oxytocin. And then the PT 141 is your desire and your arousal. When you combine the three of those things together, support with function, support with desire, support with intimacy and connection, it is just like the biggest firework. Like, it's that support piece. You have to effort and push a little less, which I think for so many people is going to help them surrender a little bit more. So.
And how about toys? We're including the rosebud with every order, and it's tastefully done. It's a rose for everyone for Valentine's Day. But
so sweet.
What are your thoughts on using toys? Bedroom.
Yeah. So I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I have episodes of the podcast that are specifically about how to choose a toy and all of that. And there is no replacement for the real thing. That's not what having the toy is about. I think for some women, a barrier to entry for them leaning into sexual expression and leaning into pleasure and intimacy is that they don't really know what they want. So they're asked by a willing partner, what do you want? And ladies, that's your responsibility. And I also do understand that the roles can be reversed here, but that's your responsibility. And so something like having that gift and it just arriving and with the PT, with the Elate spray. And then that's an invitation for you ladies to go and have time with yourself to learn your body and to also learn and interact with your nervous system. So if you haven't done something like that in a while, like let's just say it as an example, you take the rosebud, you have some time with yourself, and you just close your eyes and put your hands on your body and you show yourself that you're safe. I know it might sound kind of cheesy, but I'll remind you that I'm a sex coach, and these are the kinds of prescriptions we give. And it's show yourself that you are safe. And then potentially, if it's like, whoa, I don't want to use this thing, maybe you just have it in the room. Maybe you just have it next to you. And then eventually, maybe you grab it and you use it. But it's one of those things like, if you take the time and you're not focused on performing for a partner or trying to make them feel a certain kind of way or just going through the motions to get it over with, then you can take time by yourself, which can be really confronting for a lot of women. I will say that. Like I've talked with so many women where they would much rather just do the act of sex, wham bam, do that, than be with themselves. And that's some big work for a woman to do if that resonates for you. So you would,
Does that happen where women think it's a chore? Like, let's do this, get it over with, and let's move on. Yeah, that's
oh
the
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And that breaks
Why is
my
that? Why is
heart
that?
because, and one of the reasons why I jumped in, there was many reasons why I jumped in with Ellie, pretty quickly. And one of them was I opened your site and it said sexual health. I was like, we're talking about all of these things
That's
and
longevity.
there's sexual
Yeah,
and there's sexual. Yes.
that's
So
longevity.
there's all these studies in tantric practice that sex and orgasms, which I don't think I've said the word orgasm one time since we've been on
We
this
should
call.
talk about the
It's
different kinds of
insane.
orgasms. Yeah.
Yes, well, that rose will give a clitoral orgasm, an external clitoral orgasm, because the clitoris is pretty big, and is erectile tissue, the same tissue that makes up a penis. Um, so if you were to like put the rose button, like have your time, then you could see, oh, I really like this more this way than that way. And then it gives you the language and the embodied confidence and knowledge to then share that with a partner. It's also fun if maybe you throw in another toy called a blindfold. And potentially the next time you invite your partner to watch, but you blindfold yourself because that's really vulnerable for somebody to watch you do that thing, if that feels that way. Or you blindfold your partner. And so he can't see you do it, but he can hear you use it. So there's so many different ways that you can leverage toys, but a reminder that a toy is a toy. It's a thing to play with. You play with it, you don't put too much stock in it. Granted, there's probably some people on here that are like, I don't know, me and my toy. Like, that is my favorite thing. So
You don't invest in it.
yeah, I mean, we have a whole room filled with toys, so.
I want to take some of the questions. Guys, put your questions here. So, are there any strong side effects with the Elite spray, like the injection, nausea, dry cough? Yeah.
Do you want me to talk to that?
Yeah,
I mean,
go for it.
okay, so with certain doses, it can. There can be some nausea. I've seen throat clearing and I've seen dry cough. I have not experienced any of those myself. There can be flushing,
A little
secondary,
headache.
yeah, like a little headache, kind of secondary vasodilation, since it primarily works on the nervous system, but it still is going to encourage blood flow. And so I think that that's mostly dose dependent. And personally, my personal preference on any new peptide use is low and slow and in introducing it to my system. And so my husband and I started with very low dose, and then we can titrate up to a certain point. But
I'm laughing at some of these comments. My husband's 42.
Have a mega
We'll let
like,
go. I love that.
Is he going to? The tadalafil is the one there, but I'm pretty sure that these are moderate doses
Yeah.
of each one of the things. So
Can you use the spray when you already do the PT-141 injection? Well, you should use one or the other. You shouldn't
Yeah.
combine the two.
Right.
I mean, it's recommended that you don't use PT-141 more than 2 to 3 times a week,
Right.
because it could potentially cause some spotting. And so it's recommended no more than 8 times a month. That's the
Right.
recommendation, the FDA recommendation on PT-141. Contraindications, there's a
We've had
list of them.
yeah.
You have to check out our website, and all the contraindications are listed there. Also, as you go through the questionnaire, that a lot of things are eliminated based off the answers.
Can I give a couple of examples of how
Sure.
you can best use the spray?
Yeah,
Potentially?
let's
Okay,
do
so
it.
because especially if you start off low, which I believe that prescribers are saying like it's something that you can work with, right? It's like a titrate up kind of situation.
Hmm.
So, and this is, my husband and I, when we recently went to Miami, it was our first time, just the two of us that left our little one with my mom and my sister and all of that. And so we took our PT-141 before we flew. And that was because we wanted to flirt more. So just, it's not only like, okay, well, don't give all your power to this thing, but this thing is magical, but you've got to show up for it. So let's say you've planned some kind of experience, you and your significant other, and you either decide to do a couple of sprays before you get where you're going, or as soon as you get in the car to go home. And then and you look at that as, in my world, we'll call it a toggle, where it's like, okay, this is now like, did you ever watch Harry Potter? A port key, when like you touch the port key and all of a sudden you're somewhere else. It's kind of like that, where you treat it like once this thing happens, we're already in the vibe. Like we're already going to leverage this thing. We're going to flirt. Like you lean into it, and how you meet it will determine how bright and bold the fireworks are.
This sounds magical.
Right? So it's not one of those things where you're like, well, my libido's in the tank, so I'm just gonna do this little thing and then, go back to playing my Scrabble whatever thing on my phone, completely disconnected from my partner, wait for 30 minutes, go, you feel something, want to have sex? Like,
It's not how.
does that sound sexy?
No.
So to as much as you meet it, it's going to that experience is going to be much bigger for you. Um,
Yeah, I'm trying to answer some of the questions. So much came in. Since starting hormone replacement, my libido is tanked. It used to be very fun, so I want to help get it back. Um, Coconut oil is edible too. That's right.
mhm,
Doesn't work. Do you have any? I mean, there's so many questions. I don't want to
mhm.
scroll through them to read. I'm doing these one-on-one and I'm monitoring. I want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
What other recommendations do you have for couples to reignite intimacy if it's been a while? I mean, I hear so many couples and we are intimate once a year, twice a year, once. I mean,
know. I
that's,
hear that too.
is that okay? Is that how it's supposed to be?
Well, the term sexless in a relation in the context of relationship is less than once a month for a
Mm,
year. So it'd be 11
take note.
times or less. And
Wow.
that's to determine to sexless. I
Okay.
didn't make that
So what do you do?
definition.
You're in a sexless marriage. How do you repair it? And it's been going on for years. It's not
Yeah.
new. It's
Yeah. I mean,
5, 6 years.
I mean,
Like,
I've
where do you
had I've
start?
had couples in the past. One couple comes to mind in particular that hadn't had sex in over 3 years, since before she had her then 3-year-old that she was still breastfeeding. And and they are they have an amazing intimate relationship now, however many years later after I was first, having
But
conversation with them.
do you go and try to figure out the root cause of that disconnect first? Is it like
I
he did something and
There can
there's
be.
resentment or
Mhm.
there's trauma that's bad? What is it typically? Or is it logistics? I mean, it's all different.
I'm gonna tell you, like, some people might. I have been trained in all of the things. I've gone into trauma and somatics. I've done a ton of therapy work personally myself, and then also getting trained in it and training in tantra and then going into being taught by BDSM educators and just so much. And I I think if you want to go into all that stuff, You can, but it's hard. And a lot of times it's dark and it's challenging. And it's up to you. Do I think it's necessary at this point, after this many years, having this many conversations with people? Um, I think that doing work on yourself always, learning how to care for yourself, the biggest thing that I have seen over the years that transforms relationships is personal responsibility and accountability.
Well said.
That's like the by far and large. That's the thing, because we all have our shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have my stuff, my husband has his stuff, and that's my stuff. And I get to work with that and like determine like how do I regulate myself and how do I want to deal with that. And um it's not for him to fix. It's not for him to heal for me. And he has his own stuff too and had a parent that was in addiction his whole life. And still is. And so for us to be in the relationship that we are in, like it's a miracle. It's a miracle. And the thing that's going to keep us together is both of us know what we bring to the table. And we consistently reorient to that. And I think if I, out of everything, wherever you're at in your relationships, I think having at least at some point every week a touch point where you connect with your person and it's not just about all the things you need to do or get done is really, really, really important. Even if you determine when that window of time is going to be when you're talking about all the things that need to get done. So like I was saying before, we call it a relationship check-in. I have a blueprint of that. If anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, it's on it. It says this 20-minute exercise saves marriages. And it's just a little formula for how to just check in and be present with a person. And then in that check-in, I mean, if you were my husband, then I would say, let's talk about our sex life. And then I put that charge on the woman. How do you feel and what do you want? And then I get to decide what to do with it, because ultimately the women are the gatekeepers, typically, not always, typically, but definitely not always. And I feel free to reach out to me if you're in a relationship where it's flipped the other way around.
How can we find you both on Instagram, email, like if we want to work with you?
Yeah, I mean,
We'll find you.
that's primarily where I'm at. I'm on Instagram and I like to give.
And what's your handle?
It's Alexa Bowditch now. It used to be that sex chick.
Okay.
And it was somewhere around when I found Ellie that I changed it to my name because I wanted to talk about broader aspects of intimacy. And I wanted to talk about postpartum more, and because I'm on the front end of perimenopause, but we also want more babies. And like I wanted to talk about all of it. Yeah.
Brenda, if you could please put her Instagram handle in the comment section.
Yeah.
You guys can go and follow Alexa. That would be beautiful. And you are starting your podcast back up. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, when we went through our traumatic loss, I had to abruptly leave my career on hold, put it on hold indefinitely. And by the time I kind of came back, I was deciding what do I want to do. So I started running my programs and Love Leader and private coaching and all of that. Um, and it's always been like, when are we starting the podcast again? When are we starting the podcast again? When are we starting the podcast again? And it's an incredible resource. I have an episode that's about the relationship check-in. If you're one of those people that has no idea what you want when it comes to your sex life, I have a whole episode that's about your wants, your wills, and your won'ts. And it's like a 20 or 30-minute listen, and it will help you figure out what you want, what are you absolute no to, and then making sex recipes with your wants and your partner's wants and like blending them together and making it easy so that it's not just A leads to B leads to, okay, see you next time. So the podcast is still an incredible resource, but I'm looking forward to a rebrand. It's called That Sex Chick, and then it will be likely my name. And then I'll get to have all of these kinds of conversations too.
I love it. Any last takeaways, any messages you want to leave with the couples or anyone who's single? Any last messages?
I don't know. Is there anybody
audience.
that's single?
There you go.
Wait, well, your sexuality matters too. And you feeling that part of who you are like feeling connected with that part of you is really important through this process. And so that's something that's for you to cherish and something for you to respect. And when it comes to like calling a partner into your life, then it's well, I have a family member. I'm not going to say who she is, but I have a family member that like it is her biggest dream and desire to be a wife and to be a mom. And she's so focused on everything other than that
Are you available
that
for
it
it?
is impossible. I don't know where
Right.
it happens. How does it happen? So it's really meeting your desires, like getting really truly honest with yourself and meeting your desires and then allowing what those desires are to come to you, which means you like when women are like, just tell me what to do. I'm like, get out of your own way. And they're like, well, then what do I do? I'm like, sit and be quiet with yourself, with God, with
Mm,
spirit,
mm,
whatever. And like be. So
that's
and that's a
beautiful.
bit of a charge for the women in relationships too. And if you want me to give a charge to the men, I can.
Please do. Just leave us with some last minute takeaways before we wrap up for the evening.
Okay, so maybe I'll just throw in maybe a cherry is men, you need other men. You need other men. Is my take on it is community. You need other
Mm,
men to like if you're in a heterosexual relationship and she's the only real point of contact that you have, like it's up to you to change that so that she can't be your wife and your lover and your therapist and your maid and your cook and your all the things. So that's a lot of pressure. So like you need an outlet and you also need a purpose and a
mm,
focus and drive and also get in the gym if you're
mm,
not there already. Like treat your body like a temple, lift heavy things.
mm.
And what do I know?
Well,
But
well,
what do
I
I
think
know?
that goes for women too. Once
Yeah,
upon a time,
yeah,
we had the
yeah,
church, we had community, we had our
yeah,
families, and now we want
yeah,
all of that from one person,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
just not realistic,
A
right?
thousand
So,
percent. But I felt like I talked too
yeah.
much. I can't I also say, and also women.
And also women, we all need that.
And
We
you also
can't.
need to pick up heavy things.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Alexa, thank you so
Yeah.
much. What a privilege to have you here to speak to our community and educate us and talk about some really heavy, vulnerable
Yeah.
things that we
Yeah.
want to talk about, but we necessarily don't. So thank you so much. This is a really nice change of pace for our community. And thank you all for tuning in and being curious and open to having these discussions. We will continue to have these discussions on a weekly basis. We're here to educate and connect, and it's all powered by community and every single one of you. So thank you all so, so much for tuning in. We love you so much. Have a beautiful, beautiful night and go check out the Elite Spray if you're curious or just want to learn more. Check it out online.
Great.
Thank you all
Thank
so,
you for
so
having me.
much. Have a beautiful night. Good night. Mwah. Much love.